So let's get started. And again, thank you for being here today. We will not be taking questions at the end, but please drop your questions in the chat and we will be collecting them and following up with you. Michelle.
Thanks, Vanessa. Welcome, everyone. If you can't hear me or if there's any issue with my audio, please just let me know in the chat. Um, I've had to move inside to keep my computer cold, and it's a little bit louder in here than outside. So just let me know. Um, but hi, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for being here. I'm really excited today, although the topic of conversation will be kind of tough. I'm really excited to sit down with the five farmers that are here and willing to share their stories with us, uplift how many of their farmer peers across the country are experiencing similar things to them in really uncertain and chaotic times. Um, so I'm happy to be here, although we are not having a conversation I don't think any of us are super excited about having. I'm going to start with like a very short background on myself and young farmers, and then we will move right into the other speakers we had for today. Okay, someone is having a hard time hearing me. Can someone confirm they can hear me? Maybe on the young farmers team.
We can hear you, Michelle. It sounds it's not super crystal clear, but we can hear you.
Okay, is this any better if I move closer to the computer?
I think so.
Okay, all right. Maybe someone can support Jacob, who is having a hard time hearing me, for the folks who are on Zoom Tech. I'm going to continue and I can put my remarks in the chat as well in a written version if that's easier for anyone. So, as I said, I'll just give you a little bit of an intro to who I am and the National Young Farmers Coalition. So, my name is Michelle Hughes. I serve as co-executive director of the National Young Farmers Coalition alongside Catherine Un. I'm a former hog farmer. I joined Young Farmers as a fellow, actually, a farmer fellow in 2017. And so I was still farming at that time when I first joined the coalition as a member and like pseudo staff back then. So the issues that we're talking about have and remain very close to my heart. They have been the foundation of the work that I've done both while I was farming and since my time and tenure at Young Farmers. Um, I feel like maybe it goes without saying, but I do want to just say it for the folks on the call who might need to hear it. Young farmers represent a future of agriculture and what it will look like, whether they are young farmers on this call and in our network and beyond. And what's happened over the past few months and will continue is that we feel like young farmers are being overlooked as the executive actions unfold. So my hope is that today will give us an opportunity to disrupt that reality a little bit in sort of a safe space where we all have similar outcomes for the ag system in mind. A little bit more about Young Farmers. So Young Farmers was founded in 2010 as an organization. Many of you are familiar with our theory of change. Farmers are their best advocates. Our mission formally is to shift power and change policy to equitably resource the new generation of working farmers. In other words, we are a community of farmers and farmer advocates who connect farmers with policymakers here in DC and across the country and their respective communities. Despite what's happening right now, Young Farmers as an organization and lowercase y, lowercase f Young Farmers as a community continue to show up together, just as we are today, to highlight the farmer experiences and the impacts that current policy, economic, and conditions of nature are being felt throughout our agriculture systems, and to propose actionable and farmer-driven solutions. While we will have a lot to say today about what is going wrong, I also think it is an open space for folks who want to talk about how to make some things right, even small things. I think in an ideal world, a lot of us on this call would be here today talking about the implementation of the 2023 Farm Bill that was set to come out, you know, in a different reality. And fingers crossed, a historic win for land access in that bill. But we live in a different reality than I believe many of us expected and are quite disheartened by. So as I said earlier, today's story is about the impact farmers are facing in the first 100 days of this administration might feel frustrating and alarming and call into question the trust that young farmers and the farmer community at large have built with USDA and the executive branch over the past 5 years. But I also don't want that to limit us from continue talking about what we usually do, which is the needs of the young farmer population. What's happening right now is only making our needs more salient and immediate than I think any of us would like. But it has put a fire under many of us to become the strongest advocates that we possibly can. We still need a historic investment in land access for the next generation, which is an action we've called for loudly and collectively. That dream doesn't disappear just because of what's happening right now. It might look different, it might take a different form or become a more incremental ask, but our end goal to service young farmers directly stays the same. And we see land access as the backbone of that, included with things like, climate and farmer mental health, sort of wrapped into that. What we're seeing today is a different reality. It's a historic divestment from longstanding norms and commitments. It is a divestment in contracted on-farm and community support. It's a divestment from responding to extreme weather impacts, from measuring and tracking land ownership and farm tenure, all the things that folks care about within our community that have been affected. And generally a divestment from ensuring all Americans have access to food, and a good faith governing of our public agriculture systems. So I say all of that to say that I think today, this is becoming a reality over time. Every time I talk about what's going on, I feel like I say the same thing. Now is more important than ever. The future is more important than ever. Every time we come to a critical moment, it will be more important than ever. The stakes are getting higher. And we have collective power as institutions, as individuals on this call to create a healthy and vibrant agricultural future. So I'm looking forward to hearing from our farmers and ways that we can better support them. I'm really grateful for Jason, Hannah, Mari, Lindsay, Jess, and many more who have advocated with us over the past few months and have shared their stories through some of the most challenging obstacles of their career to date. So it is in the spirit of good governance and belief in the importance of investing in the public good that I will turn this conversation over to everyone else on the call today, and hope that you all just take in these stories as best you can and know that there are passionate young beginning producers in your district, in your state, who do need your support. It's really important right now that organizations like Young Farmers and Congress step up to show young farmers that we have their backs and we're going to support them, no matter the layered challenges they face and the level of uncertainty that we're all experiencing right now. So that is it. And I would just like to call you all in that regard. But thank you for being here.
Thank you for your introduction and remarks, Michelle. Now I'm going to pass it to our first farmer speaker, Jason Graham from Iowa.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Jason Grimm, and I come today with experience from both the public and private sides of Iowa's food and farm economy. I'm the owner and operator of Grimm Family Farm in Williamsburg, Iowa, and I serve as executive director of Iowa Valley RC&D in Amana. We're a nonprofit with over 25 years of experience providing technical support and market development for Iowa's farmers. I've been in my role here at Iowa Valley RC&D for 16 years and have a lifetime experience in farming, both on my family's farm and now on my own. And here today, I'm to speak about the stress and concerns my organization and I are feeling due to the uncertainty in today's food and farm economy. I'm concerned from both my fellow farmers, the service providers that I work with every day, as well as just our rural communities here in Iowa as well. On my farm, I grow dry beans, potatoes, and pastured poultry, which are crops and systems that are very rare here in Iowa. We market our crops to food, to schools, to restaurants, colleges, grocery stores, and directly to families as well, all across the state. This is a very fast-growing sector, which I believe has a real potential for many farmers. And in response to this strong demand, I'm actually expanding our own processing for our poultry on our farm so that I can support other farmers as well. Later this summer, we are planning to open a new official licensed poultry processing facility that will be one of its kind in all of Southeast Iowa in about a 2 to 3 hour radius. When we open this summer, we expect to process poultry for at least 25 other Iowa farms and hire 8 to 10 employees. In total, we're investing about $300,000 into our rural community on our farm to be able to do this and add this infrastructure that'll be helpful for our farm as well as others. But the recent uncertainty, as well as the disruptions and kind of limited communication, is really putting all this at risk. And I just wanted to raise some concerns today that I see related to this. Off my farm, I'm also here at my organization in Iowa Valley. And at home, I'm a father of 3 kids, a husband to my wife, and a small business owner in our small town of about 2,500 people. I've all along have been concerned that I will eventually be forced to terminate staff, to shut down programs in our organization, and may even lose my own job where I've been for more than a decade. As a leader of our organization, I haven't been able to give my staff clear guidance as well as communication, and I feel like I've let them down. That's not just a short-term blow, but it's going to be a decades-long loss of progress and capacity in our state. Currently, our organization is administrating a land capital and market access program contract that was awarded back at the end of 2023. I've had to ask my staff to pause the majority of our activities on our contract to limit our expenses until we can be reimbursed. We are currently nearing about $90,000 in receivables on our project and have also asked 2 of our subcontractors to pause their work as well. We've held off on scheduling workshops and hiring instructors that our project was going to do. We've also, during this time, reduced our staff hours down 25% during a pay period earlier this year, and have also limited professional development and other administrative expenses, as well as scheduled cost of living raises for our staff. The uncertainty has made long-term cash flow planning impossible for our organization. When I do this, I can only guess what a scenario may look like when I do cash flow planning. Our project delay has threatened our ability to launch a new fellowship program for beginning farmers that we were going to launch here in March. The first 5 years, I believe, are the most important time for a beginning farmer. And without this funding, I believe we're going to risk losing some of the next generation of farmers during this pivotal time. Training and educating beginning farmers, I believe also it's a seasonal activity. And I'm concerned that we may have to delay the launch of our program another 6 to 12 months so that our training can begin with the next spring season. Our program was going to give 15 new farm businesses access to business planning, equipment operation, crop planning, market development, financial planning training, as well as was going to give them access to tools to help them access long-term farmland tenure after they would have finished the fellowship. Additionally, our project has also been working with the Farm Service Agencies, FSA, and our NRCS offices to host USDA Service Center visits. We've had to delay those activities as staff and county staff have informed us that they're no longer allowed to host outreach events. Lastly, I'm concerned just about the morale of staff within these offices. As a personal recipient of loan programs at FSA, we've seen that directly impact our own use of those programs in-house. So just to wrap up, I urge everyone to advocate for the people on the ground who are building the food and farm systems we all need, systems that are going to be resilient, regional, and rooted in the place. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Bernhardt, and I own and operate Medicine Creek Farm in Finlayson, Minnesota, where I raise grass-fed beef and lamb and pastured pork. I'm a beginning farmer focusing on soil health grazing practices, and I direct market my meat to hundreds of customers in the Twin Cities and Duluth, rather than selling my livestock on the commodity market. I grew up on a corn and soybean farm during the farm crisis of the 80s, and because of the uncertainty I witnessed as a kid, I have intentionally chosen to farm differently. Direct marketing allows me to have control over setting my own price, and my soil health practices limit my reliance on expensive inputs. However, this also means I operate without any of the safety nets available to commodity farmers at the Farm Service Agency. I can control some things about my operation, but I can't control the weather. And while I've lost revenue because my pasture quality has been significantly impacted by 4 years of drought, I'm not eligible for current disaster payments. So because federal policy has not fully caught up with the needs of a new generation choosing to use diversification, innovation, and conservation, I've looked to a few small programs in the margins of USDA that promote local and regional markets, soil health practices, and beginning farmer development in business training and education. Unfortunately, these are the programs that have largely been negatively targeted for cuts in recent months, and I've been impacted by the federal funding freeze with more than one program. I participated in the local food purchase assistance program and had just started a conservation stewardship program contract that was going to help me improve my pastures. But my NRCS office is now down to one remaining staffer to help me with the technical assistance I need to do that. But the program I'd really like to highlight is a workforce development program that is funded through a USDA Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Program grant. There are various iterations of the program across the country run by nonprofits serving beginning farmers. But in Minnesota, it happens to only be offered by an organization that has been deemed misaligned with the administration's priorities. I had participated last year, and it was immensely helpful to have support hiring employees for the first time as a small business. I'd been running my farm for 8 years by myself, and it was also life-changing for my stress levels and exhaustion levels to have help from farm workers. So I had signed up last December to participate in the program this year, but received an email in February that the program was frozen. And prior to that, I was not even aware that this program was funded by a BFRDP grant. There's still a lot of uncertainty about whether it will be reinstated, but in the meanwhile, the organization has lost 2 staff who were helping us recruit and hire quality workers. And my farming season is already starting. I'm expecting the birth of over 100 lambs in the coming month, and I really needed the employees now. The other importance of this program is that most beginning farmers cannot gain the skills and experience to run a farming operation through college or university programs alone. Production agriculture requires hands-on experience in a work setting. Other trades have publicly funded apprenticeship or journey person programs to encourage young people to enter difficult professions that ultimately provide a public benefit to society. But for me personally, as a business owner, this program allowed me to hire quality workers who were highly invested in wanting to learn and do a good job. It helped my bottom line to boost their pay and compensated me a small amount for the time I spent explaining the production and financial decision-making that goes into running a farm business beyond simply training them on farm chores. And these programs help aspiring farmers receive a livable wage while giving them additional educational support. While my livestock operation is small, my impact on my local community and economy is large. I started small because I had to and because I was making a sound financial decision to not take on more debt than I could afford. But I work just as hard, 365 days a year in all weather, to raise healthy, high-quality meat. Sorry. I've grown my business to 6 figures. And each year, I now feed over 100 Minnesota families, often the entirety of the meat. that they will eat me here. I've been working. I'm so sorry. I've been working to build a stable business that can leave my family a lasting legacy. But the current situation has left me feeling really unsure about my farm's future. I don't think I need to say that agriculture is a very difficult profession. We can't control the weather, which threatens to make or break us each year. Consolidation, the skyrocketing price of equipment and materials, and the lack of a trained workforce has put the small processors farmers rely on out of business. We're lacking the local and regional infrastructure to scale up and feed even more Americans. Farmers are the least wasteful people I know, and we feel a lot of pride about feeding our country. And I believe it's a matter of national security and public health to support more beginning farmers selling healthy food directly to their communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah, for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your tears with us and sharing your frustrations. Now I'm going to pass it to Mary.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks, Hannah, for those heartfelt words. My name is Mari Hunt Wasink, and I'm a beginning farmer and small business owner in Eastern Iowa. I own and operate a small-scale vegetable farm that specializes in producing foods that are culturally relevant to Black communities while improving food security in Eastern Iowa. I became a farmer because I want to feed my neighbors and make sure that everyone in my community has access to healthy and delicious food. And the local food purchasing assistance program and the local food for schools program helped me to fulfill that goal while still getting a fair price for my produce. My farm has sold produce to churches, schools, and food banks through the LFPA and LFS programs since 2023. And my farm's revenue has increased by 20 to 25% per year because of the LFPA and LFS programs. I bought my first tractor by reinvesting income from LFPA and LFS back into my business. That tractor, plus the stability of LFPA and LFS programs as a market channel, allowed me to make the decision to increase my farm's production volume, which increased my capacity to feed my community. I've seen firsthand how the LFS and LFPA programs have benefited my community. It's reduced our reliance on food imports while also strengthening our local and rural economies. As a small business owner of a startup farm, I know that these first few years are really critical to establishing the long-term profitability of my business. So I created a thorough and financially viable business plan based on existing economic and policy conditions to ensure that my farm would continue to grow and feed the community for the long haul. LFPA and LFS have been a really important bridge to help my farm advance to the next stage, a bridge that I understood was to last 3 more years. Hiring my first employee, breaking into wholesale markets, buying farmland, these were all on the horizon for my farm. But now that bridge has collapsed before I could reach the other side. By the time that I learned that LFPA and LFS had been canceled, I had already made agreements with my food hub about what produce they would purchase from me through LFPA and LFS this summer. I planned to double my bell pepper production in order to meet the local demand, and I had already bought all of the seeds and equipment that I would need to scale up in this way in 2025. As farming goes, I made the financial investment at the beginning of the season, counting on the other party to honor their purchasing commitment. But now my food hub has no money to buy my bell peppers when they're ready this summer, and I have lost that huge investment. With LFPA and LFS gone, I expect my farm to suffer a 25% decrease in revenue this year. Perhaps larger businesses might be able to absorb a 25% income reduction or perhaps pivot to other high volume markets. But for a startup farmer like me, who's still building up capacity, I am seriously considering whether I can continue farming after this year. I'm in my last year of a 3-year farm business incubator program that's just designed to equip the next generation of farmers. By the time I graduate this fall, I need to have secured land and basic infrastructure and equipment in order to continue farming. So, facing a 25% loss of income this year weakens my farm's profitability right as I'm trying to make a case to loan officers at the FSA and at banks to help me finance the next phase of my business. LFPA and LFS were an important part of my financial projections in order to demonstrate my farm's ability to pay back these loans that I need so much. So let me be clear. If I'm unable to make a strong case for profitability to lenders, I will have to stop farming and shutter my small business. The cancellation of LFPA and LFS has thrown into question the future of my career as a farmer and the fate of my small business. And I just feel heartsick at the possibility of having to stop farming. I want to join the new generation of America's farmers. It's my passion and it's my true calling. The abrupt end of LFPA and LFS and the end of other farmer support programs is a major obstacle to my long-term success as a young farmer. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary, for sharing your story. Now I would like to invite policy team member David Howard to lead us through a short exercise.
Great. Thank you so much to everyone who's sharing with us today. And we thought, that it might be good to break things up a little bit. So you're hearing a lot about, farmers' experiences in their communities. And I think in that vein, we'd like to do a quick exercise with y'all to invite you to share a word that comes to mind when you think about agriculture in this country and a community that you are connected to and what that community means to you in relation to agriculture. So whatever word comes to mind is great. Sorry, hold on before you put them in there. Get them ready, and then we're all going to put them in there together. I'll give you about 10 seconds and then get your words ready. And then we're going to do what's called a chat waterfall in the Zoom. And everybody's words thinking about community and agriculture will populate. So if you're ready with your word, go ahead and put it into the chat now. Wonderful. Survival, resilience, vitality, future. Connections, circular, health, delicious, sustainable, heart, underinvested, precarious, critical, crucial. Vibrant communities, health, public health. Wonderful. Yeah, thank you all for doing that. I think we just wanted to give a little bit of a break and highlight some of the things that we all really care about, and also highlight that there's so much common ground here and goodwill here. I'll pass it back to you, Vanessa.
Thank you, David. And again, we use those words and our values to ground us on the work. And again, we thank our young farmers for sharing their stories. So we will continue hearing from them. Our next farmer is Lindsay.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking the time today to attend this briefing. My name is Lindsay Shapiro, and I own and operate Root Mass Farm in southeastern Pennsylvania with my husband and a small farm crew. My husband and I have 2 daughters, 5-year-old Alice and 9-year-old Frankie, who like to help on the farm too, especially when strawberries are involved. We cultivate about 5 acres and mixed vegetables using practices that center soil health, and we sell at 2 Philadelphia farmers markets. When we started the operation in January 2011, we were farming on leased land in Ole, PA, about 25 minutes away from our current farm. We purchased our Forever Farm in December of 2021 with a jointly financed mortgage through Farm Credit and the Farm Service Agency. The stability of permanent land tenure unlocked a host of new business investments that hadn't been feasible on leased land, specifically organic certification, solar panels, and a deer fence. While we hope to achieve all 3 within the next 10 years, the deer fence was at the very top of our wish list. We spend about $3,000 per season on deer mitigation efforts between stinky deterrent sprays, netting, and increased labor, and we lose on average $5,000 per season in crop damage. Fencing in our 12 tillable acres will cost about $25,000, an investment that will pay for itself quickly, but it is still a significant cost after having poured all our savings into the farm purchase and the transition to the new land. That's why we are so thrilled to learn that PASA Sustainable Agriculture, a grantee under the Partnerships for Climate Smart Commodities, was offering financial support for fencing through their Climate Smart Farming and Marketing program. Okay, so quick sidebar. I know you're probably thinking, how does a deer fence qualify as a conservation practice? But we know we can be better stewards of our land when we're not constantly battling deer predation. We struggle to get healthy cover crops established, add diversity to our crop rotation, and effectively implement our NRCS Conservation Stewardship Program contract in the face of near constant deer pressure. We're receiving financial assistance through NRCS to add pollinator habitats to our ag-adjacent land and reduce tillage through the use of silage tarps. The impact of these CSP enhancements is severely diminished when deer eat the native perennials in our pollinator habitats and poke holes up and down our silage tarps. Okay, so back to the Climate Smart program. We spent nearly 60 hours this winter clearing the fence line, applying for permits, and communicating with contractors, and of course, fantasizing about how we are going to spend all of our newfound deer-free time. But before our project could pass through all the necessary environmental reviews, we are notified by PASA that funding for the Climate Smart program had been frozen indefinitely. Millions and millions of dollars designated to support small farms and the ag businesses we patronize are unlikely to ever reach the folks who are depending on that support. With the news of the freeze, farmers were suddenly forced to either put their dreams on hold or make compromises elsewhere in their operations. We chose the latter option and have decided to move forward with the deer fence despite the financial burden. We've already invested over $1,000 in labor to move this project forward and don't foresee the construction costs going down anytime soon. The impact on our farm will be twofold. We'll have to, number one, delay other expenses, like our plans to reestablish a small flock of laying hens at the new farm. And two, try to raise revenue through charging more for our produce, something no farmer wants to do. But there are no guarantees that raising prices at our farmers markets will actually increase our profits. One of our 2 farmers markets is in a neighborhood with over 30% of households living below the poverty line. 2/3 of our sales at that market come from food assistance dollars like SNAP and FMMP. Our customers at that market don't have the means to absorb the price increases. Like most farming seasons, our 15th year is beleaguered by uncertainty. The uncertainty of unpredictable weather, volatile markets, and labor challenges. We did not anticipate, however, adding a federal funding freeze to that list of destabilizing forces. But this is the reality we face. Thanks again for your time today, and I look forward to future conversations.
Hello, my name is Jess. I am not sharing my farm name out of caution for my community. I am a sheep farmer. I have been raising sheep for meat and wool for the last 22 years in my community. I also work closely with young and beginning farmers in my area, connecting them with resources and support. My community is rural and mountainous and contains only a little bit of prime agricultural land, so the farms that exist are mostly small farms. Land prices are increasing in our area, which is a huge obstacle for young and beginning farmers. Another obstacle is the cost of investing in the farm infrastructure and soil health practices that set farms up for financial success. USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service plays an important role in connecting young farmers with money for farm investments through EQIP and CSP programs. NRCS staff members and their personal drive to serve makes a huge difference. And in a small and tight-knit community like my own, these staff members become like family. So we're blessed in my community to have a rock star at NRCS who realized that people were not aware of or accessing money that was available for farm improvements. 4 years ago, our office stepped up and worked hard to do outreach and to build trust among all members of the community, including many people who had not been included in that community before. That work paid off in increased contracts. Because of that work, our 2-county area saw an increase from around $75,000 to $1 million in contracts. And this may sound small, but it makes a huge difference for small farms, and it was celebrated in our district. This money helped farmers to set up cross fencing, to put in water lines, to build hoop houses, and to put in the extra work to build soil health. The increase in contracts meant a need for more staff, and that meant another qualified individual was hired and moved into our community to help farmers. I was quite upset, therefore, when I learned in late February that the newest person that had been hired was then fired by email on Valentine's Day. The workload for the remaining staff had instantly doubled, and a number of the contracts that had increased due to the Inflation Reduction Act were now uncertain. All of the farmers who were wondering what would happen to their contracts now also had to deal with decreased customer service due to inadequate staffing. The staff person was brought back after a court order, but lives in constant fear of being terminated. Because we are a tight-knit community, I also know that what was an amazing team of people who believed in the work that they were doing are now feeling not just uncertainty, but genuine anguish about their jobs, their futures, and their roles in the community. Uncertainty extends beyond their office and erodes the trust that they worked so hard to build over the last 4 years. Farmers with whom our local NRCS staff had created new relationships no longer trust the government and would not respond when called from official government phone numbers. As a farmer myself, I did not know about EQIP funding when I could have used it to build infrastructure on my farm. But now I have a CSP contract that helps me to afford the work that I do to improve my grazing practices. Though it's the smallest award available, it increased to $4,000 a year when I signed my last contract. And I had planned to use this money this year to hire a local company to clear trees from a section of my property in order to build silvopasture paddocks for my sheep. These would increase my grazing area and the numbers of animals that I can raise. I have no idea what's currently happening with that money, and that plan is now on hold. So I feel disappointed and let down as a farmer and a contract holder, but I feel a deeper pain for my NRCS employee neighbors. They have brought so much value to our rural community, literally increasing funding by over 50% and figuratively in building supportive relationships. Last year, their service was celebrated, and today they face understaffing and uncertainty, and they fear termination daily. I fail to see how the administration's current actions support my rural community. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Jess. Thank you so much to all of our farmers, all of our speakers today. Thank you for sharing your experiences. Thank you for sharing your stories of how all of these recent events are impacting you and your communities. We have heard a lot of overlapping uncertainties in what was shared today. I think it's important, in addition to naming all of these challenges before us, to also talk about the challenge and impact of this unrelenting uncertainty, because that is what it is to farm these days, to experience unrelenting uncertainty. Of course, as you have heard today, farmers know that uncertainty is always part of the experience of farming, never knowing what the weather will do. But it's a lot to ask of our farmers to accept uncertainty about literally everything else too, and that is exactly what's happening. We're asking farmers to hold on and wait while policy decisions made in DC lately are changing the social contract, breaking fragile farmer trust for the People's Department, and divesting from the norms, processes, programs, and research that are essential to serving farmers and protecting our food supply. We are asking farmers to hold on and wait while we struggle to move toward a new farm bill and to define a farm safety net that truly works for all farmers. We're asking farmers to hold on through annual appropriations processes that leave everyone constantly guessing about outcomes. All of this together is simply an unreasonable level of uncertainty to expect any small business owner to contend with. We have to acknowledge and talk about the costs of this uncertainty, including on the mental and physical health of farmers and their families and their communities. I hope we can all agree that it's important to work to raise awareness of mental health challenges in farming and to help connect farmers with reliable and effective resources. For the health of our communities, for our food security and national security, we must invest in the well-being of our nation's producers. We owe a better experience to our nation's farmers. We owe them a greater level of certainty. We owe them policy change that puts farmers first and invests in their success. If we expect young people to be interested in farming, if we expect to retain those who have already gotten started, we can and must rise to the challenge of meeting the needs of this new generation and the communities they feed. And you don't have to take my word for this. Country music artist Willie Nelson thinks so too. In the chat, I'll share a recent letter from Willie Nelson and David Center. David Center is a huge leader in agricultural movement to shine a light on these problems, and has been doing that since the 70s. In 1979, he helped lead the tractorcade in Washington, D.C. that you may have heard about. Here's the letter from Willie Nelson and David Center, and here's a little more about Mr. Center if you're not familiar. Importantly, part of that letter says that Willie and David have been heartened to see that a new culture of connection and sharing has emerged in farm country. Young farmers talk about the stress and concerns they feel and the challenges they face in a way that was not done during the 1980s farm crisis. The culture of farmers keeping their feelings and worries and challenges to themselves has shifted, thanks to your generation's great work to highlight stress and mental health among farmers. That openness and vulnerability will serve you all well as you weather this new crisis. As you've heard today, farmers here with us, farmers across the country, they are doing their best to weather this crisis, and we need to stand with them and rise to the challenge as well. I'll pass it back to Vanessa. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And again, thank you to all our farmers speaking today. So next, we want to give you some concrete actions that we would like to see, especially from congressional offices. And we know there are other folks here beyond congressional offices. And again, these are evergreen actions that you can decide to take today, beyond the 100-day mark, and the following days and the following months. These are the actions that we need you to center as congressional offices, as representative members of Congress, to really center young farmers and the future agriculture in our advocacy and in our next steps as a country. So what we want, the first and foremost, we want you to urge USDA to reinstate frozen contracts. Right now, the uncertainty of leaving with not knowing the information when your grant is being unfrozen, if it will be terminated, if it will have the chance for modifications, is really holding hostage this generation to put forward planting and decisions and grow food for their communities. We ask you to please ask questions to the House Agriculture Committee and the Senate Agricultural Committee leadership, your ranking members, your party leadership, so they can back channel and ask questions through other appropriate channels, publicly and non-publicly, about why the situation is being allowed to happen. We urge you to be vocal, to do press releases, to use our research and summary on impact data that we will share after this briefing, so you can amplify farmer voices. Because farmers want to be heard. We want to make sure that this crisis is not being underlooked. We invite you to host town halls with farmers in your districts, to create a young farmer advisory committee, and other mechanisms for opportunity where you can hear directly from farmer voices. We stand ready to facilitate these connections and to help you listen and be responsive to farmers, your constituents across the nation. Lastly, we really want to encourage you to participate in the sign-on activities related to oversight. As a congressional member and congressional office, you do have tools at your disposal that farmers and the rest of stakeholder groups like National Young Farmers Coalition is now able to. We invite you to sign on to letters, to lead remarks in the floor, and to use other opportunities to advance or understanding of what is the power that USDA has to move forward with frozen contracts, firing, and terminations. An example of that, it could look like Senator Grassley's bill related to the trade that limits the executive branch powers and allows for more congressional engagement on how agricultural policy is implemented. Lastly, we want to remind you that investing in the next generation of young farmers is a policy decision and a contract that we had with farmers over the 100 and so years that the Department of Agriculture was funded to protect the infrastructure and the investments that allows for young farmers and young people and the next generation of producers and agriculturalists to be part of our food supply chain. So every decision that we take today will safeguard our food supply for the generations to come. Lastly, we thank you for coming. Thank you for listening to the stories, and we hope that you will take actions in whatever form or shape feels right to you to protect the next generation of farmers and this generation of farmers that is being impacted by these executive decisions. Lastly, we invite you to please reach out to the National Young Farmers Team for any resources that we can help your office and your organization to advocate for a brighter, more just food system where farmers thrive. Thank you all for joining us. Right now, you can drop your questions in the chat, and we will collect them and get back to you. At the same time, thank you, and we will follow up with you on more resources after this briefing, especially our summary on impact, where 100 farmers across the nation submitted stories to us, reporting on the programs, the funding freeze, money that is owed to them, and other contract terminations. So please stay put for that in your emails. Again, we invite you to reach out to us as a coalition that represents young farmers and also helping you connect with your farmers in the ground in your districts and states. Thank you for being here today.